3 spine-chilling true stories of sinister parks. Unexplained terror revealed in the dark. The sun dipped low over Maplewood Community Park, casting elongated shapes across the play structures, where laughter and innocence danced in the twilight. But that evening, an unnatural chill tightened the air, whispering sinister secrets that sent shivers down Emily's spine. She had heard the tales, strange figures flitting between the trees, faces that vanished when looked at directly, and the eerie feeling of being watched. The park, once a sanctuary, loomed with the kind of dread that gnawed at her every instinct. As she settled onto a bench, the warmth of her children's laughter broke through her exhaustion. Max, eyes bright as marbles, swung high into the autumn sky, while Lily chased colorful leaves, unaware of the shadows lurking close. They had been to this park dozens of times, yet tonight felt different. A rustling echoed through the trees, and Emily's heart raced. A dark figure, distant, draped in a park ranger uniform, emerged from the shadows. Each pulse of her heart matched the flickering of the leaves twisting with unease. She blinked, and the figure was gone. "Mom, look!" Lily shouted, pointing toward the edge of the playground. "That man is watching us." Emily stilled, her mind flickering back to moments stolen by fatigue. Surely it was just her imagination or some tired remnants of her relentless day. But Lily and Max insisted that they felt his gaze, entranced by the empty stares, the darkness bleeding from that figure's eyes. Panic twisted in Emily's stomach. The children had begun to weave tales of a shadowy, vacant-eyed watchman who lingered just beyond, lurking like a predator. A sinister presence masked in rustling leaves and whispered echoes of her name that sent her heart racing. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A chill whipped through the park as Emily took her children's hands and led them away, but the haunting whispers clung to them like shadows. They barely made it past the swings when they decided to leave, but the oppressive air thickened with unrelenting silence. The park transformed, laughter faded, muffled by the breath of the encroaching darkness. A dread awakening, deeper than before. The ranger figure reemerged, more distinct now, standing ominously between trees, that infinite void in his eyes meeting hers relentlessly. "Keep close," she whispered urgently, adrenaline flooding her veins. As they hurried toward their car, an electrifying shiver rushed through her back. The park felt alive, pulsating with chaotic energy, laughter warping into shrieks that twisted her insides into knots. She risked a glance back. The shrunk visage of the ranger threatening familiarity toyed with her mind, a haunting reminder of something she couldn't yet grasp. The moment they slid into the car, she knew danger lay behind them. The park loomed with darkness thick as fog, shadows conspiring against her good sense. Was the threat in the entity she saw lurking? Or did the evil lie deeper, hidden within the very community she belonged to? As the engine roared to life, one chilling thought whispered into the void. How deep does the darkness truly go? Emily gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, as the glow of the park faded in the rearview mirror. Her heart raced, pounding to the rhythm of fear that echoed in her ears. Max and Lily remained unusually silent, a stark contrast to their usual chatter. The night felt heavier, stifling as if the air itself pressed down upon them. "What's wrong, Mom?" Max finally asked, his voice small. The innocence in his question struck a chord deep within her. How could she explain what they had just experienced? How could she articulate the dread that clung to her? "Nothing, sweetheart. Just tired," she replied, forcing a smile that felt brittle, ready to shatter. But Max wasn't convinced. His gaze drifted out the window, searching. "Look at the trees, Mom. They're moving." Lily pointed, her voice dripping with a mix of wonder and fear. Emily's heart skipped as she followed her daughter's finger to the dark forms just outside the car. The trees danced in the moonlight, shadows twisting, but they didn't appear like mere foliage. They looked almost alive. "Hold on tight," she ordered, her voice taut with urgency. Mustering courage, she pressed the gas pedal harder. The engine's growl filled the quiet, but the trepidation coiled tighter around her chest. Passing the park, she couldn't shake the feeling of being pursued. The oppressive darkness seemed to pulse against the rear of the car, just beyond the reach of her headlights. An urgency gripped her as the familiar road stretched out, the comforting hum of the engine warring against the unnerving stillness of the night. Suddenly the car's radio crackled to life, the static piercing the silence. Emily's heart lurched. "What the?" It sounded like someone breathing, uneven and ragged. Then a low voice whispered her name, a mocking echo that shouldn't have been possible. "Did you hear that?" Max asked, his wide eyes mirroring her own alarm. "Yes," she breathed, glancing over her shoulder, half expecting to see the figure from the park. But all she could see was the great expanse of blackness swallowing the world outside. A pull stirred in her stomach. "Turn it off," she yelled, fumbling with the knobs. But the voice only seemed to grow louder, sharper, like nails on a chalkboard. "Emily, Emily!" It wove through the car, gripping her mind, blurring the lines between fear, reality, and expectation. "Please stop," she cried as her fingers hit the power button. Immediately silence fell, a heavy blanket of dread settling over them. "Mom, I'm scared," Lily whimpered, clutching Max's arm. "Just a little longer," Emily urged, her own fear gnawing at her, but she had to mask it. She had to protect them. The road snaked onward, every mile feeling like an eternity. What should have been a simple drive felt sinister, a game of taunts and terrors. Then, out of nowhere, her headlights caught movement in the distance, an unmistakable figure standing by the roadside. She squeezed her eyes shut but reopened them. There he was again, the park ranger, illuminated by the glow like a grotesque statue. "Keep going!" Max shouted, his voice shaking her from her stupor. Emily slammed her foot down, speeding past. The figure remained motionless, watching, unblinking. A twisted smile creased her mind, a tangle of fear and anger. As they turned the corner, relief surged through her until she felt a clawing desperation to turn back, to confront whatever darkness awaited. She couldn't escape it. She could only push forward, deeper into the night. But was the park only the beginning? With fear wrapping tightly around her heart, she realized something insidious had awakened. The night was far from over. It had only just begun. "Mom?" Lily's trembling voice broke the tense silence. "Yeah? Can we go back tomorrow?" The question pierced Emily more than any terror. What could she say? What would happen if they did? The car barreled down the abandoned road, the headlights slicing through the thick blackness like a knife through fog. Emily's breath came in shallow gasps. Each exhale mingled with the growing knot of dread tightening in her stomach. The hum of the engine was ominously calm, juxtaposed against the tension simmering inside her. "Mom, please, can we not go back?" Max's voice was almost a whimper, breaking through her spiral of thoughts. "Just a little further," she managed to say, her grip on the wheel tightening. The last thing she needed was to show fear, but in her heart, she knew they couldn't escape whatever had stirred. The park had unleashed something dark that hungered, a presence that felt almost alive in the chill of the air. Suddenly, the radio flickered back to life. This time, though, there was no static or whispers, just a loud, discordant screech, the sound of metal scraping against metal. The volume spiraled, filling the cabin with a painful roar. Emily slammed her fist on the button, but the noise persisted, an insistent, tortured wail. "Turn it off! Now!" she screamed, desperate. Lily shrieked, "Make it stop! Make it stop!" Then, as suddenly as it began, the sound cut off, plunging them back into suffocating silence. In that chilling quiet, Emily could hear her own heartbeat, drowning out everything else. "What was that?" Max whispered, eyes darting wide with fear. "I don't know," she murmured, unwilling to meet his gaze. Her thoughts drifted back to the ranger, his eyes devoid of warmth, full of something dark and knowing. She clenched her jaw, willing herself to shake off the panic, to focus. But the road ahead twisted menacingly. As they made another bend, headlights caught another figure. This time it looked like a child, small, with tangled hair, standing in the middle of the road. "Emily!" Max yelled, stumbling over his words. She swerved, narrowly missing the figure, and glanced in the rearview mirror. The child stood there for a moment, then vanished into thin air, as if the night itself had swallowed them whole. "Did you see that?" she blurted, her heart racing, fear pulsing through her veins. "Mom, don't stop, please." Max's voice trembled, but it echoed her own thoughts. "Yeah, I saw. Just keep your eyes ahead," she said, shifting her gaze back to the road. But as the car sped forward, shadows moved on the periphery, darting in and out of the view of her headlights. The trees bent closer, their long branches reaching for the car as though they tried to snare it within their grasp. Another turn, another figure. This time it looked familiar. Emily's blood ran cold. A girl she'd once known in school, lost long ago in a tragic accident. Her features twisted into a haunting smile as she beckoned, her expression pleading, unearthly, urging them to stop. "No, not her!" Emily shouted, gritting her teeth, her foot pressing harder on the accelerator. Yet the night seemed alive, pulsating with unending despair. Lily's wails filled the confined space, a haunting symphony of terror. "Mom, I want to go home. I want to go home." As if responding to the torment, the engine sputtered. The headlights flickered, threatening to die. Emily felt a surge of panic. It was the very essence of the darkness coming for them. "Hold on!" she yelled, barely keeping control of the steering wheel as they emerged into a brief clearing, where the moonlight bathed the road. In that moment of clarity, Emily glimpsed something monstrous in the rearview mirror, a shadow swirling, beckoning with hundreds of twisted limbs. It was almost human, yet so distorted and grotesque. The air turned electric with fear. "What is that?" Max screamed, terror wrapping around his voice. "I don't know," Emily shouted back, breath hitching as she fought to keep the car straight. And then she heard it, a chorus of whispers rising behind them, echoing through the air, chanting her name like a sinister melody. "Emily, come back to us." Just when she thought all was lost, her phone buzzed violently on the dashboard. The screen lit up, illuminating her panicked face. It was a message, unknown, stark against the darkness. "Nothing is as it seems. You have to go back." Emily's breath caught in her throat. "Mom?" In that moment she understood this night had only begun, and the true horror lay in the choices they would have to face. Should they go back? Would it bring salvation or doom? "What happens if we do?" she whispered, looking at her children, feeling the oppressive weight of the past and the terrifying unknown coiling around them. What now awaited them in the dark? Emily's heart raced as the message flickered, casting a glow on their troubled faces. The darkness outside pressed in, a tangible weight wrapping around them, heavy and alive. "What does it mean?" Max whispered, his voice trembling, echoing his mother's unease. "I don't know," she replied, glancing back toward the sinister abyss chasing them. The message felt like a trap, a sick game teasing her with hints of a way out. But how could turning back lead to anything but disaster? The car sputtered again and dread filled her chest like ice. "Stay calm," Emily urged, forcing her voice to steady. "Just breathe." Lily was curled up in her seat, her face buried in her knees, whimpering softly. Max leaned closer to her, his young face a mask of fear. "Mom, please, let's just get out of here," he begged, pulling at her shirt. She pressed her lips together, searching for a glimmer of hope. "Just one more mile. We'll see what's ahead," she decided, though dread gnawed at her resolve. But the road twisted unforgivingly, leading deeper into the woods. The trees loomed like ancient sentinels, keeping secrets while the air thickened with anticipation. Shadows danced just beyond the reach of her headlights, weaving in and out, mocking their fear. Then came the whispers, closer now, swarming her like angry bees. They were softer, seductive, but terrifying, brushing against her ears with chilling familiarity. "Emily, Come back to us. Panic ignited again. Keep your eyes straight, she shouted. The wind howled, a wild chorus that felt alive, and then disaster struck. The car's engine let out a final sputter, gasping for breath as the headlights flickered and died. Darkness swallowed them whole. "Mom!" Max screamed, but the sound felt trapped, lost in the void. "Hold on!" Emily yelled, yanking the wheel as she felt the car slowing, the weight of dread compressing every breath she drew. Instinctively, she pulled over to the side, the tires crunching over gravel. The sudden silence felt sharp, severing them from the outside world. Their heartbeats whispered like a distant echo, loud and panicked. "Why did we stop?" Max whispered, voice thin and trembling. "Because," she stuttered, feeling the oppressive weight of their situation closing in. "I need to think." Just then she caught a flicker in the trees ahead, like a lantern swaying in the forest's embrace. Her heart hammered painfully against her ribs. "Mom, what is that?" Lily mumbled, peeking through her fingers. "I don't know," she said slowly, anger and fear carving a hard edge in her voice. "Stay here." With a shaky breath, Emily opened the car door, the chill of the night biting her skin. She hesitated, a shadow of dread wrapping around her. What if the moment she stepped out, it would be the last? The whispering now shifted, wrapping around her like smoke. "Emily, come home." With every step forward, the shadows thickened, clinging to her, pulling her. The flicker grew brighter. She could see it now, a figure. "Mom, no!" Max cried from inside the car, his voice sharp and desperate. But she had to know. She took another step, almost drawn by an unrelenting force. The figure danced closer, its edges shimmering like waves, revealing two familiar features. "Emily," it called, the voice dripping with sweetness and sorrow, beckoning. As she reached for it, a sudden surge of raw terror gripped her. The whispers transformed into mouths, writhing and hungry, clawing at her sanity. "Run!" came a desperate cry from inside the car, but her legs felt frozen, tangled in roots of fear. "What are you?" she shouted, the question hanging heavy in the air. But the figure smiled, and in its eyes, she saw shadows stretch back into memories she wished to forget, darkness that had haunted her for far too long. Just then, the scream of her children jolted her back. "Mom, please, don't go." And with that she stumbled backward, fear slamming into her like a wall, a choice thrust upon her. She had to decide, face the figure, or run into the void. "Emily," it echoed, louder. "Come back." With her heart pounding, she turned to the car, a frail flicker of hope in the dimming light. The choice was clear, but the shadows still hovered, hungry for more. "Get ready," she whispered, breathless. A moment stretched painfully as she prepared to face either terror or salvation. But as she reached for the door, the figure disappeared into the trees, leaving only whispers that echoed through the car. "Why did it go?" Max asked in trembling disbelief. "I don't know," Emily said, her heart racing. Then a final message chimed in her mind, twisting her stomach with fear. "But it's not done with us yet." What awaited them in the dark forest? She could feel it closing in, the choice now heavier than before, one that would seal their fate. Emily's breath hitched in her throat, the car's interior feeling smaller, the air thicker. Max's eyes were wide, reflecting terror, and she could see Lily starting to tremble beside him. The echoes of the figure's voice lingered, wrapping around them, binding them tighter in its grip. "Mom, what if it comes back?" Max's question cut through the haze of fear, sharp and chilling. "It won't," Emily replied instinctively, fighting to maintain an air of confidence she didn't feel. Yet deep inside, an ominous gnawing clung to her thoughts. What if it did return? What if they weren't safe here? Suddenly the rhythmic drip of water began to fall against the car roof, a slow and sinister beat that matched her thumping heart. She glanced outside through the dingy windows. The shadows seemed to swell, vibrant and restless, whispering secrets that slipped away each time she tried to grasp them. "Stay quiet for a minute," she urged, struggling to keep her voice steady amidst the suffocating anxiety. The children obeyed, but silence only heightened the tension. Then, from the depths of the darkness came a soft thud followed by a rustling sound, just beyond the edge of the headlights. Emily strained to listen. A low growl, barely audible, crept into the chilly night. "What was that?" Lily whimpered, clutching her brother's hand. "I don't know," Emily said, trying to sound calm, but her voice quivered. Each second felt like an eternity as she fought with the urge to leap from the car and investigate. She needed answers, but fear held her rooted to the seat. The rustling grew louder, shifting from just outside the beam of light to creeping slowly into view. Emily squinted into the darkness, her pulse quickening. Something moved, vague, shadowy shapes slinking closer. They flitted just beyond the reach of the dim headlights, too swift to define, but unmistakably there. "Mom, I don't like this," Max whispered, his voice quaking. Emily's mind raced. "If we don't turn on the car." The thought died midway as she realized turning on the ignition meant imprisoning herself in their little bubble of safety, but potentially alerting whatever lurked outside. A sharp tapping began against the window, rhythmic and deliberate. Lily jumped, her scream nearly dislodging Emily's resolve. She went to cover her daughter's mouth, the sound of their frantic breaths drowned out by the persistent knocking. "Emily, open up," came a voice, a whisper so chilling and intimate that it sent a shiver down her spine. Familiar but warped, twisted by something dark. She turned to her children, eyes wide with dread. "Don't move, no matter what." "Mom, please, it sounds like—" Max started, but Emily silenced him with a glare, her heart sinking as the figure from before came to life, a silhouette forming just behind the glass. "Open the door, sweet Emily. We're waiting." Clarity shattered and terror embraced her like a vice. It had pulled something from her name, her memories. But it was not her whispering it. The realization crushed her. They had sought her before, and now it had come. This was no mistake. They had been watched. Without thinking, Emily lunged for the key, the only weapon she could imagine against the pull of the voices outside. The tapping intensified, turning frantic, desperate, as though it felt her resistance. "Lily," she snapped, shaking her daughter who was pale and wide-eyed. "Close your eyes, Max, do the same." As they obeyed, Emily felt a surge of determination. She could confront the darkness or let it swallow them whole. Taking a deep breath, she pushed down on the ignition. The engine roared back to life, flooding the clearing with light. The figure paused, caught in the headlights like a deer, its features twisted, an amalgam of memories and nightmares. Time seemed to stall as the shadows flickered and pulsed, anticipating her choice. "Now!" Emily shouted, yanking the shifter. Tires screeched, gravel spitting up into the night as she barreled onto the road, aiming for the faintest flicker of hope that lay ahead. But just as they burst into motion, the whispers crescendoed into a wail, wrapping around the car, urging, pleading, merging with the shadows. "We'll never let you go." The forest began closing in around them, and Emily felt the chase had just begun. What shadows lurked 10 steps ahead? Beyond the reach of her headlights, something sinister prowled, tethered to her past and their future. "Don't look back," she commanded. But the darkness felt alive, and she could hear it breathing down their necks. As they raced deeper into the abyss, she wondered, were they really escaping, or had they merely awakened an ancient terror that would not let them leave? The forest thickened, and she could sense the impending doom waiting silently, hungry and patient. But in that instant, she had only one thought, as the shadows trailed behind them. "What will I do when it catches us?" The engine roared, drowning out the wails behind them, but Emily knew better. The noise couldn't silence the looming terror that slithered through the trees like a snake, slipping closer with each heartbeat. Her grip tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles white, as Max and Lily huddled in the back seat. The flickering shadows danced just out of sight, a dark symphony waiting to unveil its crescendo. "Mom, what if it follows us?" Lily's whisper cracked the heavy silence, tears spilling down her cheeks. "It won't. We're safe now," Emily lied, forcing a steady tone she didn't believe. But with the flickering gaze of the rearview mirror, she could sense it, feel something stirring behind them, crawling at the edges of the forest like a horror-wrought specter. The grip of panic clawed at her throat. "Just hold on." Suddenly, the headlights illuminated the road ahead, revealing a fork. One path twisted deeper into the woods, while the other seemed to lead toward a sliver of distant streetlights. The familiar glow promised safety. A bustling road, a warm diner, perhaps even joyful strangers. Emily's eyes flickered from the shadows behind to the promising path before her, and in a moment's hesitation, she made her choice. "Right," she shouted, veering onto the well-worn path. As tires gripped the gravel, the shadows dissolved momentarily, swallowed by the trees around them. But that flicker of hope came dangling at a terrible cost. The thin veil of safety was short-lived. The whispering intensified, the words swirling ominously, interspersed among sharp cackles that reverberated unsettlingly in her ears. "Your time is spent, Emily. Come home." She cringed but forced herself to focus forward. The streetlights drew closer, but instinct screamed. It was a trap. "Mom, look!" Max's voice pierced the suffocating tension. When she turned, the darkness surged beside them, a formless shape gaining speed, keeping pace with the car, its eyes glimmers of red in her peripheral vision. "Go faster!" Max shouted, his voice breaking into a panic. She slammed the accelerator. The engine roared in protest as speed mounted. Headlights blared into the vast enveloping darkness, but no light could dispel the malevolent presence racing along beside them. The whispers turned into taunts, each syllable curling sinisterly around Emily's mind, chilling her resolve. "Don't listen," she yelled, breath catching in her throat. Lily sobbed in response. "We can't let it catch us, Mom." Swallowing her own fear, Emily kept her eyes fixed on the distant lights. But as if they were mere artifacts of a twisted dream, those comforting beacons receded into the blackness, swallowed by the increase of forest. The asphalt beneath them cracked and broke. "What's happening?" Max shrieked. The car jostled violently as the road shifted beneath them. The forest itself, having been innocuous moments ago, raged back, devoured the light and closed in with twisted branches resembling reaching hands. "No!" she gasped, and with frantic maneuvers, Emily wrestled the car to stay on the shifting ground. She fought against the urge to scream as panic clawed at her heart. "Mom, it's outside!" Lily wailed, pointing frantically at the rearview mirror. Emily's heart sank. Just beyond, a shadow loomed, vast and sinewy, undulating with the forest as it chased like a ravenous beast. "Just keep driving," she screamed. But as they tore deeper into the wilderness, the whispers grew stronger, their familiarity clawing at her memories, tugging with a tenacity that threatened to unhinge her mind. Each name echoed, a chilling reminder of everything she once held dear, everything she could lose. Then in a moment of terrible clarity she understood. These were faces she knew, loved ones long gone, and the shadow wanted them all. "Please," she whispered, heart racing. As the last flicker of streetlight vanished behind them, the road ahead darkened like a gaping maw opening wide. And she knew they were no longer running toward safety. They were being dragged toward something darker, an inevitability woven into their destinies. "Hold tight, I won't let it take you," she shouted into the void, heart racing against despair. But just as she committed to pushing through the relentless darkness, her eyes caught the shimmer of water just beyond a bend. A shimmering surface threatening to rise. "Mom, look out!" Max screamed as the world swung into chaos. Then there was nothing but the shriek of tires and the desperate falling into the unknown. What dreadful secrets lay in the depths of that water, waiting to pull them down? The world spun violently. Water engulfed the car, pulling at Emily's body as she gasped, choking on the icy terror. Air escaped her lungs in sharp, panicked bursts. The car's interior darkened, water sloshing around as the vehicle sank, dragging them deeper into the liquid abyss. The whispers now echoed deafeningly, mocking in their clarity, threatening to drown her thoughts. "Mom, Mom!" Lily's voice clawed through the chaos. It was laced with pure fear, injecting adrenaline into Emily's limbs. Heart pounding, she fumbled for the door handle. "Hold on!" she yelled, but the water crested over them, filling the cabin with an ominous chill. It was time to fight. Struggling against the encroaching tide, She shoved against the door with every ounce of strength, panic enveloping her like the cold water. A cry from Max made her heart stutter. She couldn't lose them. The door yielded, forming a narrow escape route. The car bucked, twisting further into the deep. "Go, Lily! Swim!" she shouted as she hesitated, the fear of losing her children clawing at her insides. She forced the door wide and propelled herself out. The shock of frigid water shocked her senses, but instinct propelled her forward. Lily followed, small hands grasping her mother's wrist as they kicked toward the surface, every movement suffocated by darkness and weight. The whispers grew into a cacophony of chaos, voices shifting into a chorus of accusations. "You will never escape," they're calling, breathless. Max surfaced beside them, grasping frantically at the air. With no time to breathe, Emily could barely process her panic-stricken son. Instead, she focused on the faintest glimmer of light that broke through the oppressive black above. "Keep swimming," she urged, pushing them toward the surface. Each stroke felt impossibly heavy, like the water itself resisted their escape. The ghostly hands of the forest seemed to beckon, clawing at her ankles, trying to drag them back down. At last they broke free, gasping for oxygen as their heads pierced the surface. Emily's heart thundered at the sight of the starlit sky. The world spun above, serene and beautiful, utterly oblivious to their horror. "Mom, what was that?" Lily trembled beside her, water streaming from her hair. "Don't look back," Emily shouted, fighting against the disorientation. All that mattered was pushing forward, putting distance between them and whatever darkness lurked beneath the water's surface. But as the adrenaline slowly ebbed, shuddering coldness seeped into her bones. She realized driftwood from the submerged wreck was now her only preserver. The forest stood morbidly silent, watching. In the distance, a guttural growl rumbled from the tree line. There, obscured by shadows, something shifted. A mass of darkness between the trees that fixated on them like a predator. "Keep quiet," Emily hissed. The kids huddled close, eyes wide, their soft breaths mingling with the darkness that encircled them. From the tree line came rustling, branches snapping like bones. Emily's throat closed around a scream. She had thought they outran it, but here it was. The thing that had haunted their lives obscured by shadows, taking form in the depth of the woods. "Mom, we need to go," Max urged, that familiar panic returning, pressing against her senses like a vice. "Right. Movement needed." Emily turned, whispering, "We need to find higher ground." But every direction was a facade of false safety. The ominous shadows loomed larger, closer, the growl vibrating with dark promise. With her heart racing again, she led them toward the nearest tree, a gnarled giant that promised some measure of refuge amidst the terror. "Don't look back, don't look back," she kept chanting under her breath as she positioned their tiny bodies close to the tree, determined to shield them with her own. The whispering returned, edging around them, curling around her thoughts like smoke. But as she pushed her back against the jagged bark, one last desperate cry rattled her to the core. "Mom, what if it wants us?" Reflection danced viciously in her thoughts, mingling with the fear that surrounded them. Emily's heart sank. What if it already had them? A breaking branch shattered the silence, and then something rose from the shadows, twisted, crooked, a nightmare bleaker than her imagination could conjure. The glow of red eyes flashed through the darkness. This time there would be no escaping. It had come for them. What price would they pay to end this persistent terror? The shadows twisted, a grotesque form slithering closer. Emily fought the urge to scream, pushing Lily and Max behind the gnarled tree. Her heart thudded in her chest, drowning out the haunting whispers that crawled around them. The soft patter of branches above mingled with a suffocating silence, and then the creature let out a rasping snarl that echoed through the woods. "Stay close," she whispered, urgency threading through her voice. But the reassurance felt hollow against the palpable dread creeping in. Max's grip tightened around her waist. "Mom, what is it?" His voice shook, and she could practically feel the tremors running through his small body. "I don't know, but we have to stay quiet," Emily replied, forcing herself to sound steady. How could she protect them when her own legs felt like jelly? She peered around the rough bark, trying to catch a glimpse of the horror lurking just beyond their makeshift sanctuary. The figure moved, a slinking mass caught between trees, its red eyes burning into hers. Then it reared back, revealing long, gnarled limbs that dragged against the forest floor, leaving behind swirls of shadow that writhed like living creatures. The creature's growl transformed into guttural laughter, a rasp that sent shivers down Emily's spine. "Mom, what do we do?" Lily's voice broke, a haunting plea that cut deeper than any fear. "We wait," she urged, her throat dry and slick with dread. But as the creature advanced, waiting felt like a death sentence. With a sudden, desperate urgency, Emily decided, "We need to move. Now." She could feel the sharp edges of fear threatening to consume her. The creature was circling, weaving through the trees like a serpent. "Follow my lead. We run, straight ahead. Don't stop." Max and Lily nodded, eyes wide, absorbing their mother's ferocity like a lifeline. She took a deep breath, trying to shove the fear down where it wouldn't seep through. "On 3, she began, heart racing. 1, 2. Before she reached 3, they surged forward, limbs propelling them instinctively through the underbrush. The creature's laughter morphed into a furious roar, shattering the stillness of night. Together they sprinted, branches scratching at their skin as the forest pushed back, trying to pull them in. Emily dashed ahead, leading her children through the darkness, occasionally risking a glance back. The creature was on their heels, shadowy limbs stretching closer, always within grabbing distance, determined. "Faster!" she gasped, a prayer wrapped in desperation. Her lungs burned against the cold air, urging her to run harder, stronger. Suddenly, the ground beneath them dipped sharply. They stumbled down a hidden slope, landing in a chaotic pile at the base of the ravine. Emily's heart galloped as she struggled to untangle her limbs from her children, the fear of falling further into the depths clawing at her mind. "Mom!" Max cried, panting, his voice strained. "Stay low!" Emily urged, pressing them against the earth as silence fell like a stone. Was it gone? Breathing heavily, they shifted in the dark, but she felt the burning gaze of the creature above, searching. Then came a whisper, soft and deadly, curling around Emily's ear like ice. "You cannot escape." A chill slithered down her spine. She wanted to scream, to bolt, but all she could do was hold her breath and hope against hope. Above, the branches rustled, revealing a pair of eyes peering through the shadows. And then the laughter began again, echoing around them, as if the forest itself had joined in the cruel jest. Emily wanted to run, but the terror froze her in place. What lay beyond the next twisting path of branches? Did they dare to face the darkness again, or was it already too late? Emily's heart pounded as silence enveloped them, her mind racing with dark thoughts. The laughter above faded into the rustle of the leaves, but the echo remained lodged in her ears. Shadows danced, and with every pulse, she felt their weight pressing down. "Mom, we can't stay here," Lily whispered, her small voice quaking. "I know, sweetheart. Just a little longer," Emily replied, straining to keep panic from spilling over. She could feel the pressure in her chest tightening. The air felt thicker than ever. Suddenly something shifted overhead. A branch cracked like a gunshot, and the shriek of an animal cut through the night. Emily's breath hitched. The creature was still there, lurking, waiting. Without thinking, she sprang to her feet, pulling Max and Lily to their feet. "Now! We have to go now!" They stumbled out of the ravine, hearts hammering, lungs burning as they raced away from the shadow above. Each step was a gamble, but they had no choice. Fear spurred them on, their bodies moving on instinct. The creature roared again, a feral sound that chased hot on their heels. Through the trees they burst into a clearing, illuminated by the faint glow of a half-moon. But the illumination felt like a spotlight on their terror. Emily's eyes darted around. There had to be somewhere to hide. The shadows flickered like candle flames, each a reminder that the thing was hunting them. "Look!" Max shouted, pointing towards a dilapidated cabin at the edge of the clearing. It was the last place Emily wanted to go, but the woods were alive with sounds of the creature closing in. "Go, get inside," she ordered, pushing them ahead as they sprinted towards the old wooden door. They ducked inside the cabin, slamming the door shut. The air was stale and cold. An oppressive gloom hung over them. Emily leaned against the door, heart racing. She could hear the pounding footsteps outside, each thud sending chills through her bones. "Mom, what if it finds us?" Max's voice trembled, and she could see fear igniting their big, innocent eyes. "We'll be okay, I promise," she said, though her confidence wavered. The inside of the cabin was filled with remnants of a life long abandoned, a crooked chair, a dusty table, and faded pictures of smiling faces lost to time. But something in the air felt wrong. The shadows crept and curled as if aware of their presence, eager to snuff it out. "Mom?" Lily whispered again, her voice now barely audible. "Shh," Emily urged. "We need to stay quiet." The walls creaked like old bones as they huddled together in the dark, praying the sounds outside would fade away. Time stretched as they listened, hearts pounding louder than the storm in the trees. Then came another sound, a scratching, sharp and deliberate. It reverberated off the wooden floor. They weren't alone. Emily's breath quickened. "Please, no," she murmured, taking a step back towards the wall, panic nudging her fears to the forefront of her mind. Another scratch, and then a guttural growl erupted from outside, leaving no doubt about the creature's proximity. It was closing in, and she could feel their salvation slipping through her fingers. "Mom!" Max called, surprise written on his face as he squinted toward the window. "There's something outside." Emily turned, her heart stopping as a pale figure emerged from the shadows between the trees. The creature, distorted and foul, stood nearly at their height, its burning eyes locked on them. "Run!" she screamed as the door rattled violently under the weight of the thing that pursued them. They dashed to the back of the cabin, but the way was blocked by rotting debris. Desperation clawed at her throat. Where could they go? The growl morphed into laughter once more, echoing hauntingly as the creature prowled closer. Emily felt a surge of terror. What was the secret of this cursed place? Just as she turned to find another route, a shadow leaped through the shattered window, breaking the silence with a crash. Emily's scream caught in her throat as she faced the nightmare they had tried to outrun. What could they possibly do now when the darkness was inside? Emily's heart raced as the shattered glass fell like rain around her. The creature, a hideous distortion of the familiar, loomed above them in the cabin, laughter intertwining with the throaty growls. Panic flooded her senses, but she couldn't falter now. She had to protect her children. "Run!" she screamed, pushing Max and Lily toward a narrow back door, barely visible in the dim light. The kids scrambled ahead of her as the creature's shadow pulsed, eager to seize its prey. They darted through the door and into the night, that same darkness that had haunted them before, but now felt impossibly close, writhing and hungry. Fumbling, Emily led her kids through the overgrown grass, their breaths ragged and frantic. They didn't dare look back. They could almost feel the creature's breath on their skin, its laughter chasing them into the void. "Where do we go?" Max gasped, eyes wide with terror. "Just keep running," Emily urged, forcing her limbs to move even as the fear clutched at her throat. She needed to find a way to get them out of this hell. The woods surrounded them, an endless tapestry of shadows and threats, but ahead she spotted a faint glimmer of light. It flickered, jagged like a heartbeat, promising safety amidst the chaos. "Over there! We can make it!" She pointed toward the light, an old ranger's station obscured by trees. "Mom, I'm scared," Lily whimpered, her tiny fingers gripping Emily's hand tightly. "Me too, honey, but we're together. That's all that matters," Emily replied, fear and determination battling within her as they pressed on, adrenaline fueling each step. The shadows seemed to warp as they moved, whispering dire secrets, but they kept running. The air crackled with anticipation. Emily's heart pounded, echoing the hysteria that clawed at her mind. With every stride, she could feel the creature pursuing, a relentless predator. As they approached the weathered station, Hope ignited in Emily's chest, but the darkness pulsed, and she calculated their desperate maneuver. They reached the door at last, slamming it shut behind them and locking it tight as panic surged through her. Inside, the station felt surreal, a ghostly echo of safety. Windows boarded haphazardly, flashlights flickering in disarray. The atmosphere was almost comforting. She turned to face her children, their wide eyes swelled with fear and uncertainty. "Stay close," Emily whispered, summoning every ounce of strength to stay calm. They huddled together, the glow of a single lamp flickering above them, casting eerie shadows around the small room. Outside, the whispers transformed into a cacophony of taunts, angry and mocking, mingling with the rustling leaves and the crunch of twigs underfoot. Then came the thud, the unmistakable weight of the creature pressing against the door. "Mom!" Max shouted, his voice trembling. "Just hold on," she breathed, bracing herself against the door, feeling it shake under the force of whatever horror lay beyond. The growling intensified, then stopped as silence swallowed the night. Emily strained to hear the creature, knowing it couldn't be far. It was calculating, trying to get inside, and she could sense its impatience, its hunger. "Is it gone?" Lily asked, her small voice barely more than a whisper. Emily shook her head, knowing better than to let hope deceive her. "We need a plan." The walls felt like they were closing in, the echoes of the past pressing closer, and Emily broke from her children, scanning the room for anything useful. And then she saw it, an old map pinned to the wall, its edges yellowed and crinkled. The map showed the park, the surrounding woods, and something hidden deep within, a cave. "Kids, listen." Emily gathered her children close, their faces reflecting a mix of confusion and fear. "There's a cave marked here. If we can reach it, we might have a chance. It's a long shot, but it could lead to safety." Max nodded, resolve clear in his bright eyes. "Let's do it, Mom. I can be brave." "We'll all be brave," she affirmed, squeezing their hands. They could sense the urgency in her voice as she pushed open the map. "We follow this path." She traced it with her finger, feeling the pang of dread in her gut. "And we don't look back." With a fierce determination, she led them back toward the door, which quivered under another weighty thud. "Ready?" she asked, hearts racing, anticipation and fear woven together. "Ready?" they echoed softly, their little voices combining in fragile unity. Emily took a deep breath and flung the door open, the frigid night air lancing into her skin as they darted outside. Every second felt borrowed, the creature prowling just out of sight, but they ran. Wind whipped against their faces, but the path was there, a beckoning guide leading them through the tangled trees. They sprinted, branches scratching their skin, feet pounding against the uneven earth, the cries from the woods echoing, vibrating with life. As they raced through the trees, that distant light flickered on and off, almost taunting them as they traced the dusty, hidden trail. The sound of laughter returned, rising like smoke around them, but they remained resolute, pushing through the dense thicket. Finally, they reached an outcropping, a gaping maw of a cave entrance. It loomed in front of them, dark and foreboding, but Emily knew there was no choice. "Inside," she commanded. They hurried in, the earthy smell of dampness engulfing them. As they sank into the depths, exhaustion weighed heavily, but they pressed on. "Mom, what if it finds us?" Max whispered, the fear palpable in his voice. "It won't," she replied, looking over her shoulder at the darkness. They had to believe. And then they heard it. The guttural growl echoing off the cave walls, a hunger laced with malice. It seeped in, snagging at their resolve. Emily could feel it crawl closer, a tangible terror weaving through the shadows. "Shh," she commanded, whispering to quiet her own heart. They huddled together, backs pressed against the cool stone, knowing they were trapped. But then from the depths of the cave came a glimmer, the faintest light beckoning like a distant star. It danced on the walls, kindled within the dark, offering a possible escape. "Look," Lily pointed, those innocent eyes lighting up with hope. But just as they moved toward it, the growl intensified, resonating through the cave like an earthquake. It was there, looming just beyond their reach, shadow and sound entwined. And then Emily made the decision, the fragile moment of courage that felt monumental. We go. We face it together. Together. That word echoed in her heart, a powerful bond uniting them. Holding tightly to their hands, she led her children deeper. The creature roared outside, darkness swirling with a vicious hunger as they moved toward that solitary light. Each step felt like a countdown, the air growing thicker, the fear enveloping them like a shroud. The growls morphed into frantic phrases. "You will never leave. Come home." But they pressed on, reaffirmed by their bond, their love echoing into the darkness, refusing to be subdued. With every step toward the light, they embraced their fears. They were no longer prey. They were fighters, carving their way toward freedom. The oppressive weight of the cave pressed down, and with each ounce of determination they surged toward the tantalizing warmth. As the echoing sounds danced closer, Emily clutched her children tighter. They ran into the light, that glimmering beacon, breaking free from the dark. And with a rush of wind and a final furious scream, they surged into the light, breathing deeply as the darkness fell silent behind them. They emerged on the other side, a place bathed in warmth, full of life. The touch of sunlight kissed their skin, the air so sweetly familiar. "We did it," Emily exhaled, voice trembling as she held her children close, fear melting away. "Are we safe?" Max asked, looking up at her with wide eyes, hope blossoming. "Yes, we are." She smiled, and the shadows of the night faded behind them like a distant memory. They had made it, conquered the darkness. As they stepped into the bright day, embracing the promise of healing, a new beginning. Though the past would linger, they were free. They had faced the terror and emerged as warriors, forever bound by the night that challenged them. And somewhere, deep in the shadows, whispers settled into silence, waiting for another chance. But they wouldn't be alone again. Before we finish, I need you to act. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss out on the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. It really makes a difference. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Do it now.